Hi, everybody. All right, so I know we're about to go live. Well, it's going live, and we're gonna start seeing them all start popping in. So welcome. There we go. This comes up saying that I'm live. Second week doing this. Super proud of myself here. Okay, so if you don't know who I am, I'm Ronnie from A Teacher's Wonderland. And if you are here watching the replay, thank you. If you're here watching me live, thank you. I'm super, super pumped. There's 3 of you guys in here now, so I'm like really excited. We are going to be talking today about how to start math centers. And let me tell you, this is not the easiest thing to do. So if you get stressed out, it's totally fine, okay? Because it's a stressful concept. And to change your thinking from not seeing students to all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to launch this in my classroom today, it's kind of hard. So again, like I said, don't stress if this is new for you. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to support you and help you and hopefully help you grow. So the first thing that I want to make sure I go back over is what are math centers. And guys, okay, I said this last week and I said I'm going to say it again. And I know I'm saying it multiple times, and that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm like straightforward with you. Okay, so centers are where we're going. The rotation is the movement, and the station can also be a place that we're going. Okay, so for me, I use math. I call them math centers. I also call them math rotations. So you're rotating around the room. I also will call them stations because maybe today I'm not one of them, but you might go to a certain area, and that would be your station. So really, it's dependent on how you want to use it and how you use the word in your own classroom. It doesn't need to be the exact same thing that I use in my classroom or what your friend, I'm going to use Rachel, uses next door. It doesn't have to be. It could be however you want it to be. It's your stations. It's your room. Remember, this is your classroom. So if you want to call it math centers, call it math centers. If you want to call it math stations, call it math stations. Whatever you want to do. Just make sure that you're using that word across the board with the kids. So the first thing I'm going to tell you today is, and I'm not going to talk about the actual stations today. We will, but not like crazy, not like last week. I want to talk to you about location, location, location. Okay, and this also I would like to preface with saying, don't include it as a COVID year, okay? So I have my normal year and I have my COVID year. I have my 2 years. And my first year, like my normal year, I have perfect spots. My COVID year, it's a totally different ballgame. So I'm going to go into it talking about a normal year and not a COVID year. And I just think it would be a little bit easier thinking like that. Okay, so in my classroom, again, non-COVID year, we have 4 centers every single day. Every single day. One center is always me, always. The second center, we actually have to use something. We used to have to use iStation. I don't know if you guys still use iStation. I don't even know if it's even out there anymore. We had iStation. Then we had iReady Math. Now we have Success Maker. My favorite of the 3 would probably be iReady Math. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I will say I'm not a fan of Success Maker because my students, like what happens is, and I don't know, maybe this is just like a me thing. They don't learn. It doesn't teach them, hey, you did this wrong. Here's how you do this. I already at least retaught them. So I liked it, but Success Maker doesn't. So if you're looking for a program, don't use Success Maker. Other programs are IXL, literally I, X, and L.com. And it just, it's kind of just, those are the ones I know about. My district made it mandatory. We are, because of COVID, we are a one-to-one, at least school. I think we're pretty much a district. It's one-to-one now at this point. But that is my second rotation or center, whatever you want to call it. My third one is going to be some type of game of some sort. I love, 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 love games. And I showed you guys some last week. But games are, I don't want to say like my sanity saver, but it's somewhat of a sanity saver because I can print it once, laminate it, and boom, I've got it for life. As long as I don't change grades, because then that's just my fourth final one is going to be the independent work, and that goes back to the guided math program. And I'm not talking about guided math this week. I have no problem talking about it, just not going to talk about it this week. So really, and I think in like 2 or 3 weeks, we talk about how I group them, and then you'll see the rotations and everything like that. So for me, my normal classroom, I think they're called kidney tables. They're like the half circle. I just call them the moon tables. I don't know why. I just call it a moon. So my kids, I usually have about 5 kids to a group, 4 groups. Some of them might have 6, some of them might have 4. I mean, it just kind of always varies, which is fine. Then what I will do is I will take my half moon table and I would sit in the middle, and they kind of just sit around. And now what's one really cool thing, and if you have the ability to do this, because this is my favorite. I actually will let them use expo markers and write on the table. Multiple reasons why I do this. One, then I'm not like, let me see your paper, and I'm trying to reach over and trying to see. Get rid of that completely. Now I could see it, and I see their mistakes, and I could see everything kind of like laid out in front of me. And then on top of that, you also are able to just monitor and see their thinking. And then that's when, this is like my favorite. It's like my favorite center of all of them. That's when I'm able to be like, oh, wait, there's a problem. You multiplied this, and this wrong. There's the problem. So that's just one of my locations. And I love using those tables. If you have the ability, sometimes I get, especially like this time of the year, I get super bored of sitting at that table. So I will actually use the marker board completely. And that's been really helpful. I don't love the carpet. I think we've already been told next year we won't have a carpet. But I don't love the carpet because then I'm literally like on my hands and knees crawling to look at their little marker boards to make sure that they understand the skill. Make it as simple as you can for you, okay? Your kids will already be on the carpet. They love the carpet. They do. Even 5th graders, like my kids, when we have a carpet, love it. Love it. And it's so much fun. And Melissa says she loves the idea. So the kids genuinely will go to the carpet. And that's part of like that flexible seating. No, I'm not crazy flexible seating person, but I let them go wherever they need to go. So choosing to let them sit at their table allows me as the teacher to have one quick way to observe the students. And the same thing with the marker board. You know, my marker board is massive in this classroom. At previous schools, it was super small. So would I have been able to get away with it? No. And that just depends on your class. And same thing with my table. My kids couldn't write on there. So we use those little marker boards, which is fine. It just depends on what you have available to you. You want to make sure that you have all the resources, obviously, beforehand. And that's going to be a whole other ball game way down the line that we're going to talk about. My other favorite location, not just like with me, is actually going to be the carpet. And here's a rule I put in place my 2nd year at this school. This is my 6th year. I'm going into my 6th year, actually. But so my 2nd year, so 4 years ago, I actually became a one-to-one classroom there was like 10 or 12 classrooms in the entire school that became one-to-one, and I was one of them. And I learned this. It's a really weird trick. But if you have a Chromebook or a laptop or a MacBook, whatever, or iPad, whatever, you're not allowed to be on the carpet. That was it. And once I got rid of like the Chromebooks off the carpet became a place for engagement where they would actually have discussions and talk about things. And I'll tell you guys that I loved it. I love the open communication and the fact that I'm able to get the kids to work on a math game, play with their test cards, play meet me in the middle, whatever they want to do, and just kind of go into the middle of the carpet. Or even if I had 2 games, one on each side of the carpets, hands down, best thing ever. Then you don't have the Chromebook people, and I'm going to call them the Chromebook people because we have Chromebooks. The Chromebook people, I'm not micromanaging them, and I'm saying, hey, what are you doing over here? I'm saying, no, there are no computers on the carpet. So that's also a really good benefit on my end. The next thing for the carpet is, again, this goes back to right here, location. Get it as far away from you as possible. Do not put it next to you. Take my advice, I promise. This is probably one of my best little advices for new teachers. And the reason why I say this is because their conversation, and my kids, I've kind of trained them. If I hear you talking about your weekend, you're not going to be on the carpet. You're going to lose the carpet for a day. I call them grounded. Yeah, I actually ground them. So what happens is my kids on the carpet will start talking about math or multiplication. And let's say they're like, 5 times 5 is 25. Well, then my kid sitting at my table is doing 4 times 5. He just wrote 25. And that's just a simple example. Other things is the kids will be like, what's going on over there? And then they start looking. Not flying with me. So, piece of advice, take that carpet and push it as far away from you as possible. Okay? It's really, really beneficial for you as well. And then it kind of saves you because you're not just listening to the kids at your table now. You're listening to the kids that are outside or on the other side of the room, and you're trying to be like, what are they saying? No, you don't need to do that anymore because the carpet's so far away from you. Let them have that trust. Okay, let them go. Now, for the independent work, and I'll get to the Chromebooks and the computers in a second. For independent work, I always, again, non-COVID year, I let them work in buddies. Buddies to me is super, super beneficial, but I don't let them work in a group. So last week I kind of told you guys I had 4 groups. I have my low, medium, high. I don't let my low and my highs ever work together. It doesn't work on our end because the highs are just so high, you can't bring them to that level. So I actually will have certain groups work with each other depending. And that's, again, a whole nother conversation. But when I start my group, I will actually say, okay, this group, I call them, I usually, it depends on my year. I do not use colors. I know some teachers you're the red group, and they're the low group. And that's I'm not a fan of that. But some people are. We did basketball teams one year. I've done animals. Problem is, I forget which group it is. So I just say, oh, Rachel's group, here you go, boom, 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 go do this. And they know, it's kind of like they're the captain, your name's the first one on the board, I'm just going to call your name. It works. It sounds silly, but it works on my end for my kids. If you are awesome enough to remember your group names, go for it. If you can remember your animal names, I can't. Just not really remembering it. So I will say, okay, my kids that just finished with me, you're going and doing independent work. Oh, hold on one second. Can I get a popsicle? Yes. Go. So, sorry guys. This is the life of a mom right now. See, my cheeks are all going red. So the other part is when I am working with my kids and I send them off to work on their independent, I do let them work at their desk. I do not let them go to the carpet because carpet is game time. I do not let them take their desk. Sometimes I take their desk and I'll say, okay, you can go work at this person's desk, or whatever the circumstance is. But I try to do independent work with a buddy in a quiet spot alone. That's it. Just go somewhere. Okay, so if I have Rachel and Jake, the 2 of them are working together, I will say, okay, find your spot and go there. And then if somebody tries to creep in near them, I'm like, no. They were there first. They can move. And that's part of that location, that you are able to work with your kids to come up with their spots. And obviously you're moving every however long you want. And when they go to that new center, then that's their spot. That's their location. Now for Chromebooks. Okay. Chromebooks, iPads, all that technology stuff. If you have desktops, you obviously have an assigned spot. You can't change. Okay. I don't have that luxury anymore. However, some places do. And if you have like desktops still, keep them and be like, here's your computers. No one can go near them. It works. If you are Chromebooks, iPads, MacBooks, whatever else, Kindles, I don't even know what else they have out there, but whatever else they have. If you're one of those, I would definitely tell you to find a spot and just say, this is your section, or you're at your desk. It's one of the two. Now, I don't know how it works with like all the programs, because obviously they're all very, very different. But with Success Maker, they were all on different like paths. Same with iReady. So when they did this, I was never worried that like little Johnny was looking at little Jacob's computer to be like, oh, what's he doing? Oh, there's the answer. I was never worried about that because Johnny and Jacob had two completely different paths. Now, would they sometimes be like, oh, hey, Jacob, what is 5 times 5? Yeah, of course. But I also am one of those teachers that if you don't know your multiplication facts, then get out your multiplication chart and use that to help you. And that's mainly because at some point, it's got to sink into your brain. And if you doing like the rote memorization, it's not going to work, then you can use that. So I'm never one, if they're supporting each other, I'm like, fine, just do it. Only time, even like on tests though, I will actually say, okay, you can use your multiplication chart if you actually need it. It's just how it's worked. So I never really worried about that. Chromebooks as well though, if they were working with, or they're just sitting next to a buddy. Because a lot of times, like Success Maker, they have to have their headphones on. iReady Reading, they had to have their headphones on. So I'm assuming it was the same with math. I know for iStation they did. So for me, they already had their headphones on. Really, they're just sitting next to each other. Let them. And that gives them the option to sit wherever they want, right? They don't actually have to be stuck at their desk. And I think that's why I hate this COVID year even more, is because these poor kids, they're just stuck there. Like I'm stuck at my desk and I hate it. Anybody else hate it? Because I do. So those are my four locations based off of my 4 centers. Now, next year, is it going to look the same? No way. No way. They can't. Because I'm not going to have a carpet next year. Am I going to be able to get them closer than 6 feet? I don't know. And that's kind of the bummer. From what I've spoken to with our principal, she did say that we are expecting to be back in the math centers next year, which would be really, really good. And that means they can actually come to my like center and like come and like sit with me. My kidney table, moon table, whatever you call it, was removed before I even came back in September. Like when we came like in person, it was horrible. It's horrible. And like, yeah, no. So the next question is, so now that you know what type of centers you want, and hopefully you did that homework last week, now you are definitely, especially if you're getting a new classroom this year, if you're getting new materials, anything, I want you really to think of what will be your location. Where are you going to house everything? Not like material-wise, but I want you to think of where are you going to house the kids? And here's, if you can, don't get in trouble from your principal, but if you can, try to do a test run with your math groups before school gets out. So silly. You're like, but I'm not doing math groups anymore. I'm done. Doesn't matter. What you're doing right now is you are doing a practice run on your current kids that already know your rules and regulations. So now you could be like, okay, I'm just practicing for next year. I want to get these kids ready for next year. We're going to do this, this, and this. And then you can actually like have them practice and you can see what you like and what you don't like. I have had teachers before that tell me they hate kids using the Chromebooks on the floor. Whatever. That's their choice. I don't care. I'm not one, though, that's a stickler about where they should be, what they should be doing. I'm not like that. Some people cannot stand it. They can't. And it's your choice. You are the teacher. Remember that. You are the teacher. You are in charge. You tell them what you want to do. Now, here's going to be your next part, and I'm going to kind of combine it because you're going to need to know the location, but you're also going to need to know what are you going to use. Okay? Now, some stuff was taken out of my hands. I don't have to choose my technology anymore. Why? Because they're telling me, my district is telling me we have to use Success Maker. Now, next year, we might be changing actually next year. I don't even know, to be honest with you. But they're saying, hey, you have to use Success Maker this year. Guess what? One station out of my 4 is taken away from me. I don't have to deal with that. Then I have me, okay? When they come to me, I'm going to go and teach them based off the skill that they just learned with me as a whole group, because I use that guided math process. So now I don't even need to decide what I'm doing because I'm going to do a continuation of what they just learned. Their independent work, ready? Their textbook. Now, my first year, I did use my own guided math programs, and sometimes I still use them depending on the skill. However, we have been strictly enforced to use the math textbooks, so I can't even change off of this right now. Do I still use it as homework? Yes. Do I still use it as supplements? Yes. It just depends on what I need. Now, that's my 3 of them, right? And then I use the textbook and I say, okay, here's your page you have to rip out. Here's the questions I want you to do. And then, depending on my mood, I'll grade it myself or they'll grade it with me. This year, they graded it themselves. It is what it is. Well, every other year, I've graded it. Just depends. And then the last one is just going to be, what are you going to do to give them enrichment? Are you going to give them a math game? Task cards. Are you going to give them the game Bump or Jinkies? What are you going to do to give them an enrichment that doesn't feel like a chore? Because, listen, we all hate doing laundry. We still have to do it. So just like kids, they all hate practicing the skills, still have to do it. So what's one thing that we can do to support them? Make it fun. It does not have to be so straight for them. It doesn't have to be boring. Remember, I had a teacher that I met a few years ago. She was like, no, they're never leaving their seats. No, I don't think they should be out of their seat, or they should be doing any type of game. And if they're going to do a game, they need to do it independently. And so I said to her, how do your kids feel about this? And she's like, well, who cares? Well, if I was a kid in your class, I would hate it. I would absolutely hate it because I'm not being challenged and you don't seem like you're having fun either. So why am I doing this? Kind of opened her eyes, and then she realized, She went back to the drawing board and she started implementing centers, and she noticed that her kids' scores started going up because guess what? They're engaged and there's enrichment and they are actually genuinely interested. So, let them have fun. It's not going to hurt them. Now, the last part that I'm going to get to, and next week we're getting really, really deep into it, is how are you going to group them? You can always look on Pinterest for different ideas. I will always recommend that you check out Pinterest, or you just even, look up ideas for math groups. Next week, I'm going to give you the 2 to 3 options that you have as the teacher to group your students. And I will run that through with you guys, and I will show you how I group them, why I group them this way, and I've done everything possible. So I will walk you guys through that next week. But I do want you to start thinking either using this year's data, or if you actually happen to know your kids for next year, maybe possibly even using their information as well. It's totally up to you. I would probably pull last year's data, like the school is just passing now. I'm going to pull my last year's data to say, here's the kids and here's how I'm going to group them. But I want to put that in your head that next week when we get here, I want you guys to be able to talk about this, and we're going to be able to say, okay, here's our math group. here's what we're doing, and here's how I'm going to organize them. And that's just grouping your students. So you guys have a lot of homework. One, I want you guys to go and try to think of the location where you're going to have everything in your classroom, okay, for next year. If you want to try it this year and you're staying in the same classroom, go for it. I want you to think of where will you house your 4 centers. Last week you came up with your 4 centers. This week, come up with the places, because I want you to think of what are you going to use next year. I can't wait to hear you guys. I've gotten so many DMs on Instagram about this, and even some on Facebook, which usually doesn't really happen too much, but it's really exciting. You guys can send me as many messages as you want, as many questions as you want. You guys can always email me at ronnie@ateacherswonderland.com. And I can't wait to see you guys next week as we talk about how we group our students. Bye, guys.